Shabbat Shalom everyone, I hope you guys are doing good, in good health, and you're feeling encouraged. This week we're going to study the end of the book of Deuteronomy, the end of the book of Numbers, which of course is actually, technically speaking, it's the end of the Torah, right? The whole book of Deuteronomy that we start next week is basically Moses' recap of what happened in the Torah. And it's a weird thing that, even though now as we reach the end of the Torah, technically speaking, you would think you've known everything, you've read the whole story and you understand everything. But as we study the book of Devarim next week and for the next few months, you'll notice that there's so much new material that you never noticed through your first reading of the Torah this year so far. And these things are going to pop out to us and you'll be like, well, why didn't I see that in the first place? And I'm hoping that today, as we study the parasha of this week, parashat Mattot-Massei, which is a double parasha, I hope that you'll also be able to learn something new that you didn't pick up while you were reading the text this week. So this week's parasha, double parasha, tells us a whole bunch of stuff, right? It starts off with the laws about vows and oaths. Let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. Then it records for us the war that we fought against Midian, which was, it says in the Torah, it was for the vengeance of Hashem and for the vengeance of the children of Israel, because of what they did to us a few parashas back, where 24,000 of us died because of their conniving, thanks to the plan of Balaam and Balak. Right? Then the Torah portion goes on to tell us about the 2.5 tribes, Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh, who decided they wanted to get their inheritance of land on the other side of the Jordan. So they stayed in the Trans-Jordan, because that was their favorite type of music, was trance, right? So they stayed there. And then the second parasha comes along, parashat Massei. It starts off with Moses recording for us the 42 encampments where we stopped in our journey from the Exodus of Egypt up until we are about to enter the land of Israel. And that's something nice to do. I don't know how many of you ever go back in your photos to previous holidays you had with the family and just go through them again. It's a very nice thing to do. Me and Becca do it quite often. We always look through our previous trips to Sweden when we start missing the family. And it's weird, I'm supposed to be on a flight this Sunday to Sweden to go visit the family, but even that's been cancelled. But anyway, the parasha goes on with the laws of the city of refuge for an inadvertent killer. Someone who by accident kills someone, it's manslaughter, has to flee to the city and stay there until the priest dies. And then at the end of the parasha, we have a few more laws of inheritance for the tribes and who's going to have which part of the land of Israel when they are eventually going to go into the land of Israel. So there's a lot going on in this week's parasha. And today, I want to talk a little bit about the calendar, where we find ourselves in the calendar. Specifically, we are now in the 3 weeks of mourning. And, the 3 weeks of mourning started on the 17th of Tammuz, but it's going to end in a whole new month on the 9th of Av. So the month of Av, the dreaded month of Av, is closer than you think. In fact, this coming Wednesday is Rosh Chodesh Av. So today I want to chat a little bit about where we find ourselves and what we can learn from Rosh Chodesh Av that will help us out in this time. So this week's parasha actually mentions Rosh Chodesh Av. I don't know how many of you picked this up. But as Moses is doing the 42 encampments and recalling where we were, every now and then he stops to tell us a little bit about each of the places, or some of the places at least. And there's at one point where he stops, where we were at Mount Hor, which is a weird name for a mountain. It means mountain. And when we were at that mountain, that is when Aaron died. Remember, Aaron went up with his son Eleazar and Moses, and Aaron had to take off the priestly clothing and put it on his son Eleazar, and then Aaron died. Now, he tells us specifically what the date was when they went up that mountain, and that was the 1st of the 5th month, which means it was Rosh Chodesh Av, which is this coming Wednesday. That is the day Aaron died, and that is in fact his Yarzeit. Now, as you'll remember from previous parashas, when Aaron did die, the entire nation of Israel mourned him for a 30-day period, meaning that the entire month of Av was a month of mourning for the nation of Israel at that time. And even today, Rosh Chodesh Av is still quite a somber day. Usually with the Rosh Chodesh, it's an exciting day. We're excited about the new month. But this Rosh Chodesh falls in the 3 weeks of mourning. And specifically, Rosh Chodesh Av starts the 9 days of Av, the 9 days of mourning, which is even more intense than what we've been mourning so far. So some of the stuff that we do to increase our mourning in the last days of the 3 weeks, but the first 9 days of Av, is that we no longer wear freshly laundered clothes. You can't wear freshly washed clothes, especially ironed clothes. You have to wear dirty clothes for these 9 days, right? We're not eating any meat. We're not drinking any wine. Not that you're allowed to buy it anyway. We don't do anything joyful in those 9 days. No music, no new home improvements, no new purchases on which you have to say a blessing of Shechianu. We're taking these 9 days to a new level of intensity of mourning in Av. And it's connected with the first of Av, Rosh Chodesh Av. The Talmud, you'll recall when we had the happy months, back when we were celebrating the month of Adar, tells us when Adar enters, joy increases. But it says the exact opposite for the month of Av. It says when the month of Av enters, mourning enters as well. We decrease our joy. So what I want to explore today is why is it that the day Aaron died became such a sad day for us? Why is the day Aaron died the start of the 9 days of intense mourning? You know, mourning the death of Aaron on Rosh Chodesh Av actually is quite a fitting time to do it as well. Because the Talmud also has another very well-known saying that the death of a tzaddik, the death of a righteous person, is comparable to the burning of God's home, the destruction of the temple. And that is what these 3 weeks are about, right? That's what's going on at this time, and that is what we are mourning. So let's chat a little bit about Aaron. What do we know about Aaron? If I ask you to explain to me who was Aaron, well, there's 2 main themes that we can sum up Aaron's life in. First of all, he was the Kohen Gadol, right? He was the very first one to become high priest of our nation. He was there when the tabernacle was inaugurated. He was our first one doing the sacrifices. He was the Kohen Gadol, I almost want to say the big kahuna. The big kahuna Gadol. It's actually the Hebrew what it says, right? But another thing about him is if I was to ask you to tell me about his character, what would you say? What type of person was Aaron? And unanimously, all our sages will tell us the same answer. Aaron was a person who pursued peace. In the Pirkei Avot, we have that famous saying from Hillel, where he tells us, be disciples of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, loving people and bringing them closer to the Torah. This is the type of person that Aaron was. And there are many stories in our Midrash about things that Aaron did to bring about peace amongst the nation of Israel, and to show love to everyone amongst the nation of Israel. For example, Aaron was known as our very first marriage counselor. Yeah, they would say that whenever a husband and a wife were fighting or there was strife, Aaron would be called to come and fix the problem and reunite the husband and wife. And as a result of this reuniting of the husband and wife, there would be a baby 9 months later. And what would they do? They would name the child Aaron, because of what Aaron did for them. And our sages say this is the reason why the Jewish nation has got so many people with the name Aaron, because Aaron was the one that brought together the parents that did that marriage counseling. But Aaron was also a friend counselor, if that is a thing, right? Between friends, he was always trying to make peace between friends. There's a few stories about this, but I want to quote for you one of the Psalms that actually tells us that Aaron is connected with friendship. Psalm 133 verse 1 to 2. You should know this. It says, "Oh, how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity." It's a nice song. It's a beautiful song. We make many songs of it, many tunes. Right? That's what the psalm is talking about. But the psalm goes on to actually mention Aaron in connection with this, how good and beautiful and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together in unity. Verse 2 says, "It is like fragrant oil on the head." Who gets oil on the head? The anointed one, right? The anointed priest. That runs down over the beard of Aaron, and flows down on the collar of his robes, because he wore the high priestly robes. So Aaron was known for being someone who makes peace in the community. So much so that it probably got him in trouble once or twice. In fact, maybe that's the reason why Aaron built the golden calf. Remember, they wanted to kill him, and he built the golden calf for them, just so that there would be peace among the people. So there's a lesson that we can learn from Aaron. But think about this, right? How is it that one man was responsible for the peace of an entire nation? Not just any nation, a bunch of quarreling Jews. How did Aaron get this right to keep that entire nation of Israel at peace? Surely he didn't put together a Middle East peace plan, because we know no such thing exists. Well, the answer to how Aaron did this can be found in this week's parashah, with some of the other laws that come up regarding the high priest. Can you think of any laws in this week's parashah that talks about the high priest? The laws of the accidental murderer who has to go to the city of refuge. So the Torah portion tells us that if someone by accident murders someone, there's ways today, maybe in a car accident, you inadvertently cause someone else's death. I think the biblical option they give us, or the story they give us, is if you're chopping wood and that head of the axe flies off and kills someone, right? It's manslaughter, but you didn't murder the person necessarily. So what does it say? It says you have to run to the city of refuge and you have to stay there until the death of the high priest. So here's a question for you. Why does someone like that get freed of the guilt when the high priest dies? Why? There's a few options and a few answers given by our sages. But the one that I want to bring forth today, it's a very interesting one, is that the reason that this inadvertent murderer gets set free is because it was the high priest's fault in the first place. How about that? How is it the high priest's fault? Well, apparently, the high priest is responsible because he didn't pray enough. Listen to this. This is from the Talmud, from Tractate Makos 11a. The Talmud records that the mother of the Kohen Gadol would be the one who looks after these inadvertent killers in the city of refuge. She would be the one taking them food, taking them clothing, and spoiling them rotten. Why? Because she was scared that these people would be constantly praying that her son, the Kohen Gadol, would die so that they could be set free. Think about it. If the thing standing between you and your freedom is that one person dying, you'd want to put curses on that person. Do as much as you can to maybe, make sure you're sleeping with the fishes so that you can get set free and go back to life, back to your regular life. The Talmud, in fact, records one of our famous rabbis, who is simply known as Rava, as stating that the Kohen Gadol actually deserves these curses from the people that end up in the cities of refuge. Why? Because the accidental murder happened because the Kohen Gadol did not beseech Hashem in prayer properly on Yom Kippur when he entered the Holy of Holies. That's a pretty nice explanation if you think about it as to why God allows accidents. Maybe it's not always your negligence. Maybe it's the negligence of the Kohen Gadol, who didn't pray well enough. He didn't concentrate while he was praying on Yom Kippur when he entered the Holy of Holies. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is the opinion that I'm going to champion, but I do want to use this opinion in today's prayers to show us, in today's study, to show us how important the prayers are of the Kohen Gadol and what we can do today. And by the way, on another note, you might be wondering, if the mother of the Kohen Gadol is the one who's supposed to look after these guys in the cities of refuge, then we have a bit of a logistic problem. Because this week's parasha tells us that there are 6 cities of refuge, right? 3 of them are across the Jordan anyway. How is one mother going to sort out all these people stuck in all these cities of refuge? Well, the answer is that there was actually more than one Kohen Gadol whose death set these people free from the cities. So, for example, you would remember when we studied the laws of Yom Kippur, that on Yom Kippur Eve, there are 2 Kohen Gadol set up. There's actually a spare Kohen Gadol, just in case the original Kohen Gadol gets an impurity and can't perform the whole service on Yom Kippur. So the Talmud says that spare Kohen Gadol, right, the backup, the bench warmer, he also counts in the laws of when a Kohen Gadol dies, they can be set free, right? So there's another one. Plus, there's another thing from this week's parashah where it talks about the war against Midian. It tells us that Pinchas was anointed as the priest of war. Remember, the high priest in this week's parashah is Eleazar, the son of Aaron, right? Pinchas is the grandson, and he gets instituted as the priest of war. So the Talmud tells us that even the priest of war's death also allows for those that are stuck in cities of refuge to be able to go out. It's an interesting concept, this priest of war thing. The Hebrew for it doesn't even call it a priest. It calls him the Mashiach HaMilchama, the Mashiach of war. So anyway, so there's a few different guys that can die from a priestly lineage that will let you free from the city of refuge. Okay, so what this shows us then is that it shows us how important Aaron was for that generation of the Exodus. His prayers would help prevent accidental deaths in the community. And we know that Aaron was constantly praying for the peace of the community. Every time there was an uproar, Aaron would fall on his face and pray. It's the first thing he does because he wants there to be peace in the community. And we know that Aaron's prayers carried the power of atonement for the people. The Torah tells us this. It says it, right? We constantly see that Aaron has to come and save the nation from one or another plague that has come about because of our foolish sins. For example, in the revolt of Korach, Aaron was the one who had to get the incense in the pan and run between the congregation and stop the plague before it went through the entire congregation. We know that the Torah tells us that Aaron's clothing itself also provides atonement for the nation. And we of course know from all the Yom Kippur services that Aaron, his prayers and his service in the temple are what bring the nation atonement. So Aaron is very, very important for the nation of Israel. So too every single high priest that we have, because they bring peace for the people by providing atonement. Without the Kohen Gadol, you can't do most of the temple service and get that atonement in the first place. But where does it leave us today? We have a problem. We don't have a temple standing today, and we don't have a Kohen Gadol working inside that temple, right? That's what this whole 3 weeks of mourning is about. Now more than ever, I think, we need a high priest to take the incense and run into China to stop the plague from what we're experiencing today. We are unfortunately in the same situation as that inadvertent murderer who got stuck in the city of refuge. Look at us. We're all stuck at home, stuck in lockdown, waiting for our high priest to die so that we can be set free and go back to everything we used to know. What do we do with this? I think you know where I'm going with this. Because we know that the earthly temple is a shadow of the heavenly temple. We know that the earthly priesthood, the Aaronic priesthood, is a shadow of the heavenly priesthood, which of course is in the order of Melchizedek. And we know that the earthly offerings on the earthly altar are a shadow of the heavenly offerings on the heavenly altar. And in the heavenly temple, we do have a high priest. Of course, Yeshua is our high priest who has already died for our sins, for us to be set free. But what is Yeshua doing up there all day on the clouds? What does he do all day? Does he just play games? Paul tells us in the book of Romans chapter 8 that Yeshua sits at the right hand of God doing exactly the same thing Aaron does, pleading on our behalf. Yeshua is praying for us constantly while he is up there functioning in the heavenly tabernacle. He's doing the exact same thing so that we could have peace down here. So we should really beseech Yeshua during this time to bring us peace and to request peace from Hashem. That's what Aaron did for the nation, constantly praying for their atonement and peace among the people. So we have a high priest that is constantly interceding for us, praying for our peace, loving us, drawing us near to the Torah. But that also needs to be our reality down here on earth. We shouldn't confuse the earthly tabernacle and the physical needs of humanity with the spiritual heavenly tabernacle and the spiritual needs of humanity. Although they are connected, we need it to be, firing on both fronts. As disciples of Yeshua, we in fact pray for this on a daily basis, asking Hashem that what's going on there in the heavens, where Yeshua is functioning as the high priest for us, we're asking Hashem on a daily basis to do that for us down here on earth again. Because Yeshua taught us to pray the Lord's Prayer, which says, Our Father who is in heaven, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is being done in heaven. We want that to be done down here again, so that we can also have peace among us and, atonement, so that we won't have to suffer with things like plague, disease, and illness. And as I see it where we stand today, there are two ways we're going to get through this whole pandemic. Either God's going to allow us to find a cure or find a vaccine, which is something, by the way, that we pray for every day in the prayers, just before the Amidah, we pray a prayer saying that it is He alone who makes salvation grow and creates cures. Right? Our faith is not in the cure. Our faith is in Hashem allowing us to find a cure or a vaccine for this thing. Or there's a second option for us to get through this, which I like a lot more. The second option is if God initiates the Messianic era. Because in the Messianic era, there will be no more sickness, no more disease, no more death. And we will be living in our resurrected bodies, which, probably won't be susceptible to these viruses. Our resurrected body is not an antibody, but it's much better. I think option 2, the Messianic era, is the one that's the better long-term solution, right? Because that one is the one that doesn't just treat symptoms, that is a cure forever and all time. And that's hopefully what we'll be able to experience, please God, soon and in our days. But what should we be doing now? While we're stuck down here without the Kohen Gadol, without an actual temple on the earth, what can we do in this week where Rosh Chodesh Av is approaching? This coming Wednesday begins the month of Av. Well, it's the same day that Aaron passed away. So let's look at Aaron, the person who he was and what he did, and learn a lesson from it. Let him or his memory be a blessing for us by being disciples of Aaron during this time. Loving and pursuing peace. Loving one another and drawing others near to the Torah. It's a well-known fact that the reason why, the sages tell us, the reason why the second temple was destroyed was because of baseless hatred among fellows. Aaron represented the exact opposite. Aaron, his entire life, was one of boundless love towards his fellow. Almost limitless love, if you look at what he did by building them the golden calf. So much that he had so much love for peace among the people that he even did that. If the prayers of the Kohen Gadol could prevent something like an accidental death, then maybe we, as a nation of priests, should be praying even more fervently in this time of mourning. We should spend the rest of this 3 weeks of mourning pursuing peace, loving people, loving one another, and bringing others close to the Torah. And I know that's difficult, especially now that we're all stuck at home and you don't really have interaction with other people. But maybe that's a sign that the peace, the love, and the drawing near to the Torah that we need to be working on can even be within our own families. And I know it's difficult after spending 4 months in the same building with the same people over and over and over again, to get along with them. But maybe this is what's required of us at this time. Everyone in your house needs to sort out your house so that our houses will be ready for the coming of Messiah. By the way, Pretoria's original name, before it was shortened down to Pretoria, was Pretoria, Philadelphia. You know what that means? Philadelphia means brotherly love. It was Pretoria of brotherly love. We need to live up to our names and we need to show brotherly love to everyone around us. So in this week ahead, in fact, in this whole month ahead, the month of Av, let us try to be like Aaron, to pray for each other and to really be peacemakers. Because Yeshua says to us on the Sermon on the Mount, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called sons of God." Shabbat Shalom, Chodesh Tov, and Chazak, Chazak, Vanis Chazek. Be strong, and let us be strengthened.